Hi, everybody. Welcome to the latest installment of our Pivot Artist interview series. Today we are joined by James Johnson, Northwest Coast artist. And we're just going to jump right into things. It's Liz here again, and then Amy's joining me today. And so we'll just get started.
Great. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining. I'm really excited for this artist interview. I know we've gotten a lot of really good feedback online from a lot of our followers and some of your followers, so we're really excited to see just some more behind the scenes for the Pivot Show and some other things about you. So our first question is, how did you end up joining the Pivot Show?
Yeah, Dwayne, I saw randomly the flyer for the first show that was going to take place at the museum in Northern Arizona in Flagstaff. And I messaged Dwayne, and at the time too, I just finished a board for LipTech snowboards. And so I sent Dwayne the graphic that I did and said, hey, I'm a Tlingit artist in Phoenix, and I'd love to be involved with the show, bring a Northwest Coast angle or artist into it. And he said, yeah, let me show this to Landis and get back to you. And he got back to me the next morning, said, hey, great, we'd love to have you in the show. And then he said, can you get me 3 boards, I think in a week, which was kind of short notice, but yeah, I got it done, and it turned out. And the first show was incredible up in Flagstaff. So it was really an honor to be involved with Pivot.
So then what does Pivot mean to you?
Talking with Dwayne, the original concept was to inspire Native youth to kind of get an interest in their culture and their heritage. And I thought that was really important and kind of almost it's vital right now for Native youth to feel proud of who they are. And so that was my initial kind of motivation to get involved with it. But again, after seeing the first show open in Flagstaff and seeing the collection of artists that were involved, it was so much bigger than that. Us having all the same medium as a skateboard deck. You have all these different cultures. You had over 100 decks displayed with wide range of backgrounds and cultures on the wall. And that was incredible. And even more so, this last year in Santa Fe, I had a Tlingit woman come up to me at my booth, and she said, hey, I went to the exhibit in Flagstaff and saw your boards. And she said she was kind of overcome with emotion, and she started crying in the museum when she saw it, because she felt that seeing the work of our people from Alaska down here in the Southwest was really special for her. And as she was telling me this too, she was getting emotional, and it made me get emotional, you know what I mean? And that's kind of part of our culture, we lift each other up in times of need. So it's the Pivot, it's kind of taken on so much more than kind of one facet. And I'm really honored to be kind of the Northwest artist involved in the exhibition. It's really an honor for me.
I think
it must be really big to have that representation, just seeing it in different places around the country and seeing kind of the diaspora of how things have spread and where people are at and what that means to people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was going to agree with Amy, kind of her point, the Fort Lewis students, there's Northwest Coast and Alaska Native students at Fort Lewis, so I think it means a lot to them to have that representation on campus in the Southwest.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I know Fort Lewis, there a lot of Alaska Natives go to that school because it's on the WUI program, so they could get in-state tuition down there. And for me, if one of them could come and see my boards on the wall and feel that part of home or feel that connection to their culture, and that's worth it for me. I don't need any more than that.
Yeah. So shifting to a more personal note too, how did you first get into art?
Wow. It was, I mean, I've been carving for 12 years now, and I'm born and raised in Southeast Alaska. I'm a member of the Dakwa Wadee clan, which is the Killer Whale clan. My family lineage is from Hootsumu Kwan, which is Angoon, Alaska. My Tlingit name is Anish Ka, which means man who stands alone strong. That was the name given to me by my grandfather, Chief Peter Johnson of Hootsumu. And that was also my father's name as well. That was given to him by my great-grandfather, Chief Jimmy Johnson of Hootsumu. And so like my family lineage, like the art that I do honors them. And I felt the need to learn the art form. The art form itself is thousands of years old. It's, there's no word for art in our language either. So it's completely integrated as part of our culture. So much more than just creating something that looks pretty. It has a real deep history to it. And I'm really fortunate that whether I chose to do it or it chose me, like this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. I've dedicated everything I have to it down to like the core of my being. You know, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. But I taught myself the fundamentals of the art form. You know, every line you see is precise. It has to be balanced with the next line. And to learn, it's called form line. And to learn form line takes years and years of studying and practice, of drawing. You have to draw all the time. Like your life depends on it. You have to learn how to draw. So the better you are at drawing, the better you are at carving. You're gonna start seeing the balance in the art form. I was lucky. I've been carving for 12 years, and after the 4th year of carving, my one of my pieces was chosen for a big Alaska show called Celebration. It's a big juried art show in Alaska that happens every 2 years. And the head juror was Nathan Jackson, who's one of the all-time greatest Tlingit artists living. Nathan's incredible, and he chose one of my masks to be featured in the show. And that was an incredible honor, but then I asked him to critique my work, you know, and Nathan's pretty straightforward and blunt. And he told me, he said, look, like you're really good, obviously, and that's why I chose your work, but the work you're doing right now is garbage. You could do so much better than this. And so to hear that from like your one of the all-time greatest peers, really kind of humbled you, you know? And then, but he said, look, this is what you need to do now. And I focused on that, you know, for the last, 8 years. And like learning the art form, it's lifelong. Like you're always absorbing. But, the carvers I look up to, they've been carving for 40 plus years, true masters of the art form, and one day, like, I'd love to be at that level, So that's kind of the gist of it, I guess.
A little follow-up on that. Why do you think art is important right now, like in these kind of crazy times?
I mean, for us, like for Northwest Coast, again, like each artist, I'm talking about Northwest Coast artists, like you have a bigger responsibility on your shoulders than just creating something that looks pretty. You're carrying on a tradition that was created by our ancestors thousands of years ago. And the fact that our ancestors went through this horrific period during colonization of Alaska and Northwest Coast, there was a time where you weren't allowed to do it. You're thrown in jail for speaking your language or singing the songs. And so, you have this responsibility to carry on what they started. And so much was lost with our people. And for example, like right now, we're going through this pandemic, and in the Northwest Coast, like smallpox wiped out 3/4 of the Northwest Coast population. So people could kind of grasp that a little easier now that you see, the crazy times that we're in right now. But the fact we came out on the other side of that, as an artist, it's our job, our role to pick up, whatever pieces we have left and put it back together the best way we know how, move forward and create pieces. So it's like vital to do what you do, you know. Yeah, like I said, it's like it's so much more than just creating something that looks pretty, you know. It's a really deep rooted a deep rooted feeling you get doing the art, you know. I love it.
Yeah, this kind of follows up on that, but one of our questions, you know, is what does being a native artist mean to you? And does that have, you know, some weight and symbolism and something to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's like with the Pivot exhibit, you have all these cultures and different backgrounds, but everyone has a backstory with what they went through during colonization of the United States. And the artists all suffered during this time. And so the fact that anyone's doing what their ancestors started and carrying it through their lifetime is really admirable. And it's needed, you know. And I'm really proud of what I do. You know, I taught the art, I'm self-taught, you know. I taught myself how to carve, how to do form line. It took years of studying, but I studied like old pieces in museums. That's how I learned, because they're the true masters of the art form. Like these days, we have every tool imaginable. But the reason our art isn't as good as theirs is because they have this really tremendous knowledge of the art form that we don't have today. And so we're all trying to get back to that level that it once was. And it's exciting to see that the progression. Like there's so many good artists, Northwest Coast artists, like so many good ones right now that are really pushing the envelope and, you know, learning the language. And it's exciting. You know, it's exciting to be a part of that movement for right now, you know.
Well, you provided a really good segue into our last question, which is that we had noticed that you have visited some museums and gotten to look at Tlingit art. And obviously, you know, we work in a museum and we do have Northwest Coast prints and art in our collection too. So we were kind of wondering, you know, what do museum collections mean to you as a contemporary artist in trying to continue with these traditions? You know, how do you use them and what do they mean to you?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's give and take, because like the turn of the 19th century, like as a lot of major museums saw that our culture was dying in Alaska and the art form was becoming non-existent, expeditions went to Alaska to collect pieces by any means necessary. And now a lot of times I was just taking it. And you, like for a mask, for example, when you carve a mask, you know, in the old days, that mask was stored in bentwood boxes and only brought out for our kuwiks or potlatch. And when it wasn't used, it was stored away. But that mask was passed down generation to generation for a long time. Really sacred pieces. It's called our atu, our sacred pieces. And so you go to museums and you see our atu in these collections, and it's hard, it's emotional. I was just in Denver for a show, and Chip Colwell, who's one of the curators for the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, he actually bought one of my skateboard decks from Pivot for their collection. And Chip is amazing. Like he wrote a whole book on repatriation where he's given back like over 2,000 pieces to our people, which is really admirable. But he set up an appointment for me to go through the collection because I'd never been to his museum before. And it was really emotional. You know, first piece, his assistant Dominique showed me their collection in the vault. And like the first piece they brought out was this incredible feast dish. Like it was one of the most beautifully carved pieces I've ever seen in my life. And I get choked up just thinking about it. I started almost crying looking at this piece, thinking of our people, thinking of what our people went through, you know. And so you see those pieces in museums, and you know, it's like my grandfathers were all chiefs of Hustumu, big guys, and there's not a single piece left in our family. It's all scattered all over the world. Who knows where it is? You know, that's really sad. It breaks my heart. That's also like a reason why I do what I do. I want to create as much pieces as I can to build it back up again. You know, so it's like, you know, the museums aren't our enemy. You know, want to carry a lot of resentment for the situation that happened. But it's, again, like, you know, I mean, I'm fortunate to do what I do. You know, I have pieces in Denver. I have a piece at the Art Institute of Chicago, which is incredible. You know, so they're pushing, like, you know, bringing in new work into the collection, which is awesome. But again, like, it's give and take. Not everyone feels that same way, you know. A lot of pieces too have been given back, you know, and you're thankful to have those pieces back.
I think we're really trying at the center also to just have more connection, to make sure that what we do have, that tribes are connected to it, you know, collaborating with Zuni and other folks, and trying to make sure people get to see and experience our collections, and give back the things that are appropriate to give back and that people want back, and just, yeah, finding that balance, and also training Native students to be the collections manager or the curator, or the, you know, bring that perspective, because there are so many Native American collections in museums. So
yeah, I mean, it's, again, like, repatriation that took place in, you know, the 1990s. You know, a lot of pieces did get given back to the clans, which is really awesome, but it doesn't apply to, like, it's not international law, you know. So everything that's overseas is, who knows what's over there. But again, like, during my lifetime, I want to create as many pieces as I can, you know. My dad, when I was first learning the art form, he told me, he said, don't get attached to your work, because you saw how much goes into creating a piece.
Mm-hmm.
He said, don't have an attachment to it. So when you finish a piece, you let go of it. Like, you let a balloon go in the sky, you let it go where it needs to go. He said, but the main thing is you focus on your skill. So your skill is most important. You'll pick up any piece of wood and create something from that. But that kind of goes back to the traditional Tlingit ways, where, like, the totem pole carvers, the second they finished the totem pole, the carvers could no longer touch it anymore, because it didn't belong to them. It belonged to the people. And so, like, you know, I think, again, like, I want to create as much as I can and have it go where it needs to go, you know. And then I still do pieces that I'll give to my son, you know, to have during his lifetime after I'm gone. And museums too, like, I'm thankful to have pieces in museums, because I know, like, majority of my work is for sure going to outlive my life, you know, so more people could see it, and, you know, my son could go see it after I'm gone, which is awesome.
Well, those were all of our questions, but I'd also just love to listen to you talk forever. So if there's anything else you want to say, we'd also love to have you back at some point too. If there's any other programming or things like that.
Yeah, no, thank you guys so much. It's really good to, I guess, meet this way. I'm looking forward to coming up to Colorado and seeing the exhibit in person. I guess when everything kind of cools off, like, I'd love to come up and see it and see all the decks, you know. And I'm also, my son, he's been running around here, but I'm donating, like, the killer whale deck. Like, I'm donating the sales for that deck to the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, which is something I'm really, that means a lot to me. My son was born with CF, which is a life-threatening genetic disorder. And if I could help out in any way with something like that, like giving back, you know, I'm really happy to do that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks so much for chatting with us today. And we just want to say thanks to everyone for watching. We have really loved the support that people have been giving us for doing these artist interviews and supporting all of the artists that we featured. As always, we want to give a huge shout out to the LPEA and to our crowdfunding supporters who helped us bring Pivot to the Center of Southwest Studies at Fort Lewis College. To plug everyone, there's James, you can follow on Instagram at James Johnson Native Art, and at his website at jamesjohnsonnativeart.com, all one word. You can see more of his amazing art and all of the cool projects he's working on. You can also find more Pivot content on Instagram at pivot_skateboard_deck_exhibit. And you can follow us at the center at Center SW Studies FLC on Instagram, and check out our YouTube channel. We're trying new things. You can see all the past Pivot artist interviews and subscribe to find out when we post more. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.